And then on either, then you have the dot, which again, the guy that I have speaking about the Gurdjieff fourth way, the work, he talks about in Daoism that this idea that there's a dot that isn't a void but is full of potential. And that from that void, like with discipline and awareness of the self and reduction of the ego, that you can manifest sort of power like through your body from this, and realize the potentiality. So that dot kind of reminds me of that.
The traditions that I'm speaking about, Mr. Gurdjieff's tradition of the fourth way, was preceded by many thousands of years by the Daoist tradition, which from my studies also is connected with this fourth way. And the Daoist tradition, which was actually the beginning of the explanation by the Lama, because the Daoist tradition doesn't believe in what would be complete emptiness, but rather they begin not with complete emptiness, but with a void that is not empty. That is, it's full of potential. And this is like zero. You can represent it by a zero, and you can represent the beginning of the unified force of consciousness as one.
And then it almost is like a figure, like a head and little arms and then a body, but it's sandwiched with these two C's on either side, which I think is supposed to be cancel this clothing company, which I don't know what that means. I'm not familiar with this guy. Or cancel this conspiracy. But again, it's not a conspiracy. It's not hidden. You just actually have to start to understand the game. And I'm not saying I fully understand it, but I understand more than a lot of people. So to me, the C is like a mirror. So it's almost like, if you imagine that you've got a digital twin, so it's like a mirror, so there's the self and then there's the digital twin self. This is what I'm feeling like at this point, is that there are aspects of embodied intelligence that are critically important, including how we function with our microbiome, the things that live in us, the things that live on us. You know, I remember being a kid in middle school and seeing a film strip about the creatures that live behind your eyelashes, and I was totally freaked out, but like now I get it. Like sometimes I think the flashes of clarity that I get are coming from my little microbiome. Like maybe it's like my tartar on my tooth or something. Like they're transmitting to me like what I'm supposed to know. So I do believe that embodied intelligence is really important. But then also, if we're trying to deal in like 4D or different time scales or different information fields, a physical body doesn't go there. Like maybe the consciousness can go there, but not the physical body. So what if you mirrored the consciousness? Now, I'm not saying it would be a replica exactly, like it wouldn't have a soul, but somehow you mirror this as an information field that can go out as a scout into different spaces and bring back information, and maybe even go into different spaces with other digital twins, right? I think that's part of this biohybrid, this system, these hybrid intelligence, collective intelligence systems, is you're supposed to join with other kinds of minds, and Levin talks about that, and then process information, come up with epiphanies or realizations, and then bring it back and integrate it. Like maybe our biology is supposed to integrate it. And then maybe that's what the bio-nano is that once it's integrated, the information from these open source signals gets processed in conjunction with our collective intelligence of our gut microbiome or something like that. But the physics of the twin would be different. But I think it has to be tethered. And someone has talked to me, like Sean and someone else, about it being like a string, like the silver thread that is your soul, that, you know, if you do astral projection or like even your soul, when people pass, that string breaks and then you're separated from your physical body. So to me, when I looked at that, it seems to me like a sigil that may have a number of different kinds of visual interpretations to it. But it's a very odd symbol. I don't know if anyone has come across how he explains why he uses that, but it's notable. So to me, I feel like the dot may be this void full of potential. The T is like the Tau cross. And then the Tau is also linked into, I think there's like some sort of plaque that's connected to Alzheimer's. That's like a protein or something plaque that clogs you up that's related to like mental function, like that's also a Tau. It's related to microtubules maybe. And then you've got the paired C's. So anyway, I wanted to mention that.
So if you want to know what RFK Jr.'s campaign is really all about, you actually are going to have to look at Nicole Shanahan and figure out what she's all about.
Okay, and I think I at least I've done a couple things on Nicole, but the Oakland thing, I think you have that sort of under your belt now about why I think Oakland is important in terms of imprinting and setting the stage for what's coming with this sort of decentralized society.
Because he gets money from lots of sources, but she's a big one.
Okay, but he doesn't say Tim Mellon, right? He doesn't say Tim Mellon anywhere in his presentation.
And I naturally had a lot of questions for you and a little bit of time before and after talking to her. And everything she said, both on camera and off camera, made me extremely confident that I like her as a person and I like her policies and I really admire where her head is at. I think, like myself, she has some of the best parts of the left and has swung to a lot of the best parts of the right and landed somewhere pretty cool in the middle.
And again, that's presuming that this is still about an ideological position. And it really isn't, because it's a technical structure that we're dealing with. It's not about a left-right conversation. It's a centralization, decentralization, or blockchain crypto Web3 questioning. But even the blockchain Web3 crypto questioning isn't even an option that's on the table at this point.
She was extremely successful in her own right before she met this guy. And the media's in overdrive, writing hit pieces, trying to smear all different directions of her, and that's whatever, par for.
And that's true. I mean, I think the whole thing about Elon Musk was to set her up as an aggrieved person, right? As someone who didn't deserve this. Maybe that was an inaccurate story, but it gave her then the leverage to say, look, I'm the bigger person, right? And I there's part of me that feels like that whole thing was just cooked up and that they all know it.
For the course. My personal take is that Sergey is a pretty evil man from all indications, and he runs a pretty evil CIA operation at Google.
Okay, so again, this is the archetypal field. Evil man, evil company. And, you know, I'm not here to back Google Alphabet, because clearly they're involved in all aspects of this. But to pretend that Nicole and Bobby setting up a Bitcoin digital identity system is somehow not in alignment with what Google Alphabet is doing in terms of its spatial computing system is naive. They're both playing the same game.
Speaking in generalities, and whatever tiny fraction of his net worth she walked away with at the end of that, if she's going to use that for good instead of for censoring us and surveilling us, I'm cool with that.
And again, the censoring and surveilling conversation is about setting you up on the blockchain as a sovereign citizen so that you can be an agent in the game.
And actually, this is how most presidential campaigns get on the corporate take, is because they need money to get the White House, and the corporate interests are the ones that have money. And so if you don't have it, they get to decide who doesn't get there. And so him finding someone that has a slice of that pie that believes in what he believes in is kind of fucking awesome.
Okay, so again, this idea that somehow Bobby is outside of the corporate system is to disregard all of the corporate money that underwrote Natural Resources Defense Council and the fact that he was a managing partner with a venture capital firm that was investing in fourth industrial revolution technologies, including militarized ocean drones.
And if she's not corrupted by those interests and she's actually a genuine human that really believes what she's saying and wants to do good by all of us, like, that's badass.
And again, I'm not saying that Nicole is a bad person. I'm saying that she must be probably a pretty smart lady if she was at Stanford and she was at Singapore and these different things. And I'm not sure if, as a mother, Nicole, if you're listening to me, or if someone with the Kennedy campaign is listening to me, please relay this, because I think mother to mother people get it. If someone told you, Nicole, these digital identity systems, these wallet systems that are being set up are going to allow billionaires to invest in children as asset-backed securities and monitor them in their Head Starts, in their Montessori schools, in their forest schools with sensor-based technology, so that they can tap into the creative imagination and the access to the field that children have that has been domesticated out of the adults, and not only mine them for those abilities, but then to bet on them as part of global automated hedge fund financial markets. I would hope mother to mother she wouldn't be about that, right? But for the most part, everyone lives inside a story that's siloed and they make it about personality, which is what often people do about me. Like, oh, I don't like her. She does this or she did that or she blocks people or whatever. So they don't actually talk about the substance of what I'm trying to lay out on the table. They just want to make it about personality. So I'm not making it about personality, but I do think that we owe it to ourselves to understand the system that Bobby and Nicole are putting in place and what the implications are of how it could go terribly wrong, even in the name of some sort of like anarchist, libertarian, freedom-loving signal festival or something like that. Like, we don't understand the game, and the people who are investing in the game do.
And kind of hilarious too. A lot of what they talk about is kind of like directly taking on the censorship industrial complex, and they're going to use the censorship industrial complex's money to do it.
Okay, so the opposite of the censorship industrial complex, which I'm not advocating, but that's the attention token economy, right? That's Rockfin. That's blockchain tokening. That's Odyssey. That's Library. That's everybody who wanted you to, sign up, and get some tokens for watching things. Yeah, that's what it is. And I'm not in any way apologizing for Google or being a fan of Alphabet or anything like that. And YouTube definitely has its issues. Like, I've had shit taken down. Like, it's not great. But let's not play like one is good and one is bad. They're just different. They're different. But I think the same people own both sides.
I'm kind of joking, but it's also kind of a hilarious joke. And speaking of taking on the censorship industrial complex, I didn't realize, but I was also there at the same time as Mike Benz, who she was also interviewing. Dope guy, shout out Mike Benz, keep exposing the censorship industrial complex. And I actually spent most of my day hanging out with her staff and her partner, Jacob. And getting a sense for who someone surrounds themselves with is a great way to get a sense for who that person is and what they believe.
Okay, so again, it's about personality, and this is setting up the transpartisanship program, which goes back quite a ways and is sort of embedded in these different alternative currency systems and biofeedback and integral theory and Michael Osterlenk, and there's a lot there. So just because someone is like neither one nor the other, I mean, again, I'm not either one or the other, but I'm not centering that as the main reason I would vote for someone is because they're pulling from both sides. What's more important is to actually understand the structure that they're putting in place.
So first question, is Nicole Shanahan aligned with, in any way, the big interests of Silicon Valley and the rich billionaire tech executives that are kind of ruining our world? Absolutely not.
Now, again, her significant other works for the Lightning Network and Bitcoin. So to pretend that somehow Silicon Valley billionaires aren't invested in Bitcoin is ridiculous. And Bobby knows that because his daughter was dating one of them, right? I mean, it doesn't make any sense. And a lot of the work that I was doing in the education space had to do with the Silicon Valley Community Foundation. And again, they're going to frame these, probably at some point it'll turn into a community bank or something like that. But the billionaires are running it. Those people all hold Bitcoin, right? They all do. So to say that she's somehow disconnected is ridiculous. It's just, it makes me angry.
Not going to tell you about how and why I believe this, but absolutely not. No.
I'm not going to tell you anything. Yeah, you're not supposed to know, but anyway, just trust me because I've got a cute mustache.
No, she is not. She does have lots of friends in the industry in various places, but they're not people like this. Instead, she has friends that are involved with blockchain, cryptocurrency, specifically Bitcoin, and a whole bunch of really progressive technological concepts that are coming whether we like it or not.
Okay, so this is the thing. It's coming whether we like it or not. So we might as well have nice people like Jacob, the surf boy, give the poor people some Bitcoin, right? And no, I'm not buying that we don't have a choice to say no to this. I don't buy it. I don't want a gentler, a friendly, ubiquitous computing system. I want us to have an open public debate about what it means to live in a spatial computing environment with sensors and actuators that are linked to digital identity and automated AI systems. Dude, we deserve that at the very least. So let's not just pretend that because this guy isn't Google, that he's some good guy. I'm not saying he's a bad guy. He's just a face. He just shows up to work. And, I don't even know, like, in terms of, like, the deep state or the government or the billionaires, like, who's behind all of this. But it's not these individual people. We have to interrogate the system.
And we need knowledgeable people that can steer these technologies in a good direction for all of us. Spending a fair bit of my day with Jacob, I have nothing but respect for this dude. He is such a legend.
Okay, and I will point out steering being the operative word. Steering, that is cybernetics. It's Kubernetes. And when you look at the whole presentation, all of these links that I put together, Stafford Beer, who's a cybernetician and systems theorist, who's been working on stuff since the 60s and 70s, like he really lays out what it means to steer. And his what he says is, this is not about forcing people. This is about creating conditions that get people to a certain goal that's predetermined. And then, the overall question at the end of the day is, who is determining the goal? And how does that process happen?
Like, what an incredible human. What a homie. Both very smart and very kind. I could not say enough nice things about Jacob.
Okay, and again, the archetype, right? Sergey bad, Jacob homie, right? And look, he's just so cute, right? Like, who wouldn't like this guy? Like, if he wanted to give you a token wallet and tell you to level up and join the Up Together program and post your personal progress on your fitness goals or something, like, wouldn't you just be happy because he's so nice, right? Isn't that what it's about? It's a popularity contest, right?
Nicole has 100% moved up in the world, going from a sociopath like Sergey Brin to a homeboy like Jacob.
Okay, so I'm just going to say that as a woman, I find that really offensive, that somehow like Nicole's value as a person is linked to who she's with, like romantically. That's really demeaning, actually, Nicole. I think I wouldn't be down with that.
And the deep ties that come to Bitcoin, the Lightning Network, the progressive end of the blockchain technology space, huge win.
Okay, so I will point out that the word progressive, as someone who used to identify as being on the left, who was a liberal and then left and then sort of a radical left, and then I'm like, I'm out of this box as I see these things are ridiculous. I didn't understand what progressive meant. I was sort of sold on this idea that progressive meant you care about people, you want people to have supports, social safety net, all of those things, right? Like that was the line that I was fed. But when you actually dig into what the progressives were, it is very much a eugenics-based scientific management of society program. And that goes back to the 19 teens and 20s. And so the John Deweys and the stuff that was coming out of Columbia University, it wasn't the progressivism that I thought I was signing up for, right? And so he actually may be very accurate in calling these Web3 systems progressive technology. But again, most people listening would think, oh, like NPR liberal progressivism, like give me a tote bag and I'll go to the farmer's market. They're not thinking progressive in terms of technocrats, right? Or eugenics or anything like that. That's not what they would equate with progressivism. But it is. We need to get that. We need to be aware of that.
This is how we wind up with free and fair monetary systems going forward instead of central bank digital currencies that turn the whole world into a hellscape.
Okay. So again, putting back the CBDC, setting up the community currency program. Oh, we don't want the hellscape of that Klaus is offering us that we have to eat bugs. We would rather have SNAP benefits on blockchain that incentivize people to eat apples instead of hamburgers, And again, I do want to sort of go over a map about social prescribing, but I think that this is a really important distinction because what I was realizing during the lockdowns was the health freedom people were actually a lot of them were incredibly totalitarian, like incredibly judgmental and like rigid. And like, I wouldn't want those people in charge of deciding what my choices would be. Like, and I respect that different people have different priorities about their food, but I think we need to respect that different people have different priorities, and I think we should advocate that people have enough economic resources to be able to afford the choices that they want to make. But yeah, I actually was really unsettled because I didn't really come from this sort of health freedom biohacking community, and whether that be plant-based diets or other things. And I found a lot of those people like really unsettling. They were not very nice.
As for the other people she's surrounding herself with and talking to, inviting me, a conspiracy theorist from the left, so to speak, and Mike, a former Trump speechwriter. Obviously, we're both way more than that, but just for brevity's sake.
Archetypes.
She's talking to people from all sides. That's dope. Her campaign is being staffed and run by people from the right and from the left. The homies Zach and Brandon were awesome people.
Again, popularity.
Again, they don't even know I'm making this video. This is my genuine take, and I feel comfortable putting it on the internet for whatever that's worth. I went specifically to gather information, public and private, for my own understanding of what's going on with their campaign and whether I feel comfortable continuing to say good things about them. If I'd gotten weird vibes or a bad taste in my mouth, I definitely would not be making a video like this. I would probably just quietly be moving on.
So I would just say, like, this is TikTok, right? Like, so we're questioning big tech, and I get that I'm putting this on YouTube, so it is what it is. But like, this is just him saying, trust me, right? I just did this for, like, this is his business, I'm assuming. Like, he has 400 something thousand followers on TikTok. Like, it's his business. And the business is, don't necessarily think for yourself, just trust me. I went. And I didn't actually talk to her that much because she was really busy, but I talked to her staff, and they don't know I'm doing this, but I just trust me, right? And he's not saying, oh, well, here's some things to consider or to see. This is what they stand for, and maybe you should look into it a little bit more and see what your position is on Web3 and blockchain and AI. He's just like, no, they're all good. They're nice people. And just leave it at that. Don't dig any deeper. And I would assume, hopefully, that people who still feel like the voting is viable, which at this point I'm not really sure it is, but if you do, that you would actually find it a little condescending, that he would just be like, just vote for them because you like me, right? That's influencer culture. It's kind of gross.
I got nothing but genuine vibes, and I left with strong confirmation that I feel good about my stance. I obviously don't agree with them on every issue, and Nicole and Bobby differ on some of the issues, but they stand together, and I stand with them on the most core issues of all.
Okay, so here it says upholding the Constitution against corporate capture. And I guess that's the core issue that he thinks is important. And again, I would just ask, like, do we understand what the Constitution is in the context of Web3 smart contracts? And that's what I've been asking a lot of conservatives for a long time, people who identify as constitutionalists, is how do you match up Web3 smart contracting as a protocol layer against your perceived rights under the Constitution? Because ultimately, and Nicole would know this because she's a contract specialist. Contract law is her specialty. Patent law is her specialty. She would know that essentially the protocol layer of blockchain and AI is creating a perpetual layer of arbitration where you'll never actually get to your constitutional rights. So what does this even mean? Like, he believes that they're upholding the Constitution even as they're building out the protocol layer to keep you apart from whatever perceived rights you have under the Constitution. Like, this is again, I've been asking for people to grapple with these ideas for years, and we haven't made much progress.
Which Bobby perfectly elucidated in his speech at the Libertarian National Convention the other night. Contrary to what all the media smears against him show, here he speaks about the Second Amendment, and then at the end, I'll do the part about climate change that everyone is getting fooled by.
Okay, so here's a little bit about the Second Amendment, and I would just say, we don't understand the weapons. This idea that somehow you are going to defend yourself with some, equipment that you have in your home belies the fact that actually this guy's pitch is a psychological weapon. How is having the Second Amendment going to protect you from this guy's TikTok propaganda mental structuring? We don't understand the weapons. We don't, and they're very different. I mean, some of them are frequency, some of them are nano, some of them are simply psychological warfare. I would say Web3 cybernetics could easily be understood as a weaponized system. We don't understand the weapon, so this idea that somehow you're going to have a firearm and that's going to protect you from this stuff, from drones, from directed energy weapons, from whatever, from cognitive domain management, they're just pushing people's buttons.
The only amendment that did not come under attack during the COVID pandemic was the Second Amendment. And many Americans believe that the reason for that is because we have a Second Amendment.
Okay, so push that button.
A lot of people point to this fake clip. It's like a little micro clip where he seems to say that climate change people should be in jail, which is a clear smear campaign. I'm talking about this clip that always gets taken out of context.
Do I think they should be in jail? I think they should be enjoying.
But he's actually talking about the Koch brothers and all the billionaires that have been dumping toxic waste into our rivers and soil and air.
Okay, so that is going to be a setup for graphene nano sensors to clean the poisoning that's happened.
I just think it's really weird how many like anti-establishment people that claim to be free thinkers are being fooled by the very obvious establishment smear campaign against the two most anti-establishment people in the race.
So again, you can't be a managing partner of a venture capital firm investing in fourth industrial revolution technology and the senior attorney of an environmental law firm that takes large amounts of money from philanthropies associated with big tech and the Ford Foundation and the Rockefeller Foundation and pretend that you're outside, that you're some grassroots guy. Like, you're not a grassroots guy. You're part of the establishment. And I think like most people who actually have a clue about like what the Kennedy legacy, I mean, they're not outsiders. None of this is outsiders. What he is doing is he is setting up a brand of impact finance that will be positioned against the Klaus Schwab version, that will be framed as regenerative permaculture that's going to, you know, he can link to his addiction, mental health, organic farming programs, and that he can, you know, come up with some excuse to put biochar, graphene nanosensors in the soil, and he can still run the investments for global capital, and they can run them on the Lightning Network or whatever, and then they'll you know, hook up all of the poor kids in Oakland and give them a digital identity, like that Hirschberger was trying to get it set up, and you know, put them on the Up Together platform and put them into lifelong learning for the AI. But they'll tell a story that makes it okay, that you're gonna like it because they've bought the influencers that are going to tell you to eat the shit sandwich.
Think about who is threatened by a pardon for Julian Assange and Edward Snowden and protections for whistleblowers, and think about the lengths they would go to keep that from happening.
And as I've like unfortunately spent more time in this space, I just don't really believe most of the whistleblowers at this point. I think most of that stuff is all pre-planned out.
Think about the propaganda they would put out.
Like this isn't propaganda.
The divisiveness they would sow. So anyways, I'm going to keep doing what I do, interviewing them, hearing from them, judging them accordingly, just like I do with all candidates. I'm just filling you guys in on what I know now. Interview coming out later this week.
Okay, so I'm done. This is more than I meant to do, but I do feel like it's important to get this on the record. I don't know how many other people are, since I'm not on social media anymore, like questioning from the point of perspective that I'm questioning from. But yeah, I'm not a propaganda artist. I'm not sniping just to be snipey. I'm trying to say like he's not an outsider. He's setting up impact finance. Oh, and I will do this one last map that is Bloomberg and social prescribing, because I think it's important, the fact that NRDC honored Michael Bloomberg as a climate change, you know, environmentalist, and with Bank of America that's doing impact finance, and that Bobby's doing chronic, you know, illness that is linked to Bloomberg being the WHO non-communicable disease guy. It's all the same. So like, would you, health freedom warriors, would you blockchain someone and make them register their step count? Would you blockchain them and make them register how much kale they ate? Would you blockchain them and ask, like, demand that they show how many yoga classes they went to? Because that's what's going to come up. And I think that's what really disappoints me in, like, I never really belonged to the resistance movement per se. I never fit in with that vibe, but it just makes my skin crawl to see where it's all going. Last few minutes, I promise, I just wanted to revisit this map that I made. This is one of my little sis maps one of the like 300 or so maps that I made before they kicked me out, because I realized too late it was just a honeypot, to keep track of activists who were not with the program. And but I had made this map of Michael Bloomberg and Bloomberg Philanthropies and how it related to social prescribing. And what I'm realizing is that this the collective intelligence that's linking human in the loop with AI, a lot of what is needed is the future of work is for us to be human, is for us to do the things that the machines can't do. And that's stuff that's qualitative and relational. And so this idea of the arts, of community, of creativity is like to perform our humanity in front of the machine and then let it somehow over time with the machine learning log all of the stuff to like develop a heart, which is not going to develop a heart or a soul, but I think that's the intention behind the social prescribing program. And then in the meantime, they're going to come up with everything with key performance indicators and metrics and Internet of Bio-Nano things and social computing. And everything is going to be kept on track with cybernetics. And so people are going to, there's going to be measures of social control, and some people are going to make money, and there'll be many, many signals emitted. But that ultimately it's about building this base layer of what it means to actually be human within smart environments, smart city environments, and smart communities. And, even though I made this map years ago, it's still really relevant because, again, remember, Michael Bloomberg was honored by NRDC, including with pictures with Robert F. Kennedy Jr. in 2008, like honoring him as like a key environmentalist. Because Michael Bloomberg was the UN ambassador envoy for climate change, as well as the ambassador to the World Health Organization for non-communicable diseases. Now that's chronic illness. So literally what Bobby's core foundation of his platform is baked into Michael Bloomberg's What Works government. And again, you'll see stuff with the people around Bobby, like the Coca-Cola whistleblower and all of that. Well, Michael Bloomberg and John Arnold, who were two of the key people behind impact finance, were also people who wanted to do the soda tax. And at the time, it didn't really add up for me because I'm like, well, I don't disagree with the idea that soda is not good for you, but why are these guys that I know are highly problematic supporting it? Like why? I don't trust that you've had a change of heart and you really care about people. There's something else motivating it. And so it's to get into the chronic disease phase. And then I think a lot of that is linked to pre-diabetes and metabolism and wearables. And I'm starting to get the sense that the metabolic awareness is going to be linked possibly to this like cryptobiosis. And I don't know how this would even happen, but this idea of like tardigrades and being desiccated and being sort of like freeze dried and in like hibernation animation, which is part of that 3-Body Problem TV show, that somehow like the continuous glucose monitor wearables that Esther Dyson wants to slap on us and everything that will be put out in the name of like diabetes management is somehow part of like a rehydration program. I don't know. Maybe that's a bridge too far, but it feels like it to me. Like that's what my little microbes in my gut are telling me, that it's linked to cryptobiosis. So again, here we've got Michael Bloomberg and Bloomberg Philanthropies, which is setting up, again, the smart cities, what works government, democracy innovation, health system management. Again, here we've got Healthy Years London. So shocker that London is a pilot city for this. The City of London with their Office of Innovation and Technology, with their digital government services, with their City Tools dashboards, and they're going to have Healthy Years for the early children, and Bloomberg is working with Harvard Kennedy School on the city leadership. So you've got to get all of the elected officials on board. And then they've got the creative councils, because again, it's the qualitative stuff. It's the qualia. That's what they want. So they want us to perform our humanity, right? But they also want to guide us and nudge us, which is the behavioral insights team and the nudging and the fact that that's going to be embedded in smart environments. That's the spatial ubiquitous computing. And then as part of this Healthy London partnership, they have a social prescribing. And I did a whole podcast on this, but just to revisit, they'll be like, oh, you go to the emergency room because you have anxiety and they tell you to go to a pottery class, or they tell you to volunteer, or they tell you to do something. And on the one hand, there's like merit in not over medicating people with prescriptions. But when you get a social prescription, they're going to have ways of checking up on if you were a compliant patient, right? Did you go to the pottery class? Then what were the impacts on your anxiety? And you're going to have to log all of this stuff. And that's part of building the digital twin profile. So even though on the one hand, it might be nice to get a subsidy for a pottery class, because that doesn't sound too bad, on the back end, there's some creepy stuff going on that we should be asking questions about, because it's linked to Internet of Things tracking, and this idea of pitch in with a connecting capability fund and research and innovation, right? So like, why do you need to be tracked and innovated and all of this stuff? And it's used by Ways to Wellness. And again, that's Esther Dyson. It's going to be linked to social impact bonds for health and social care, which is, again, what I keep saying is that if RFK Jr. is making this a centerpiece of his platform and he's not talking about impact finance or wearables or data, impact data and Medicaid, he's not being responsible, and you shouldn't trust him because either he's stupid or he's in on it and he's keeping things from you. And again, a lot of this is being, the R&D for it is with this Policy Innovation Research Unit with the Imperial College London. And at the time, during lockdowns, Imperial College London was doing research into the impact of non-pharmaceutical interventions to reduce COVID-19 mortality. So remember, Bobby's still on the health disparities. People died on COVID because they had comorbidities and they're all sick. So we need to do stuff to them, right? We need to socially prescribe them and we need to track their compliance. And this is all of this data tied to non-pharmaceutical interventions will be linked to the social impact bonds. And again, the backdrop of this is big society capital and Ronald Cohen. And there's ties between England and Israel, and again, the AI on the socialized healthcare in Israel and how that's all going with their digital identity systems. The wellness is sustainable development goal number 3, which is health. They're going to keep track of you in the participatory cities. They even have a paper called Made to Measure. So that's all the key performance indicators of your wellness. And again, health freedom people, do you want to be my brother's keeper? Do you want to be you better report that you did all the right health behaviors? I mean, no, we don't want that. We just want a world where people can actually have the wherewithal to live the kind of life that they want to live as long as they're not hurting other people. And this is gross. I need to tell you guys right now, get out in front of this. Is not going to be okay, right? And at the same time, they're going to focus on the vulnerable populations first, like ID 2020 in Austin. They were going after the homeless with MyPass, blockchaining the homeless people with their laminated contact paper QR codes. And it's all linked to the smart cities. And a lot of the data with Bloomberg, because he's an alum of Johns Hopkins, working in data analytics, he's a data guy. He was a major donor to Johns Hopkins School of Public Health. And then they hosted a big event with the National Interoperability Collaborative back in the day. It was maybe 2017. And of course, Johns Hopkins is connected to health security and all of these people. They want you to focus on the World Economic Forum, but also the World Bank and these pandemic preparedness bonds and stuff. But what I'm saying is, it's not like there's not going to be a call for pandemics at some point in the future. They're going to shake the can occasionally, but until we are really willing to grapple with social impact bonds, social prescribing, Internet of Things tracking, digital government, smart cities, participatory cities, and this idea that in our creative economy and linked into mental health treatments and these other things that we're going to be doing social computing, integrated social computing with AI and machines and maybe some representation of non-human entities like animals. I'm not comfortable with that. I'm just not comfortable with that. So the fact that on the one hand, they want to portray Bobby as this fighter of corporate America, as he's got his arm around Michael Bloomberg, tell me another one, right? Tell me another one, people. We're not dumb. We're not dumb. I mean, some people might be so sad and so desperate to have a hero that they're just willing to be la 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 la, I'm not hearing you, right? But I'm here to say we're not dumb. And there are other ways to do it. I think that we are creative, wonderful people that can do a lot without tokens and blockchain. And we don't need that. We don't need your Internet of Everything sensors. All the people who are you should research biodigital convergence. Well, do you know what it's for? I've been looking into it since 2020. It's for social computing, and very likely somehow social computing that involves information fields that are not normally accessible within our 5 senses, some sort of interdimensional information fields that go back probably to the Macy conferences, if not earlier, the Society for Psychical Research, and involves radiation and tardigrades and dehydration and different things and digital twins. So anyway, I'm getting tired. I spoke way more than I wanted to speak on this, but I think it's important. So hopefully you got something out of it. And Be sure to check out my really long compilation of clips. I'm not talking in it, and it may be very choppy with a lot of different information, but it's almost like hopping in my brain stream of consciousness of the thread of all of these key themes that I've been putting together over the past year. All right, bye everyone.